Good morning, friends. Robin here from Cheese from Scratch, and this morning I'm going to show you how to make something called cottage cheese curd cakes. So these are little cakes that I make often for my family. They're just a really simple breakfast, especially if you have a lot of milk coming into your kitchen and you're just often, having a ton of curds in the kitchen. So if you have a milk cow, you know what I'm talking about, is that you often just have like bowls of random curds here. So I'm going to show you how to make these today. Recently I was at a family member's house and we made corn fritters for dinner, and the reason we made that was we had leftover corn, and one of my family members was talking about how his mom, when he was a little boy, she always made corn fritters for them, and she made everything into a fritter. She would make like salmon fritters and just anything that they had around she would make into a fritter, which basically that was the first time I ever had a fritter, but basically it's kind of like a pancake if you don't really know what they are. So basically you just made like a pancake dough and then you threw in corn and then you cooked them on a hot griddle, and they turned out really good. We ate them with aioli sauce. They were super yummy. But yeah, one thing that he said when we were eating these, and they're delicious and wholesome and good, and one thing that he said that kind of stuck with me was, my mom could make anything out of nothing. And I loved that. Like, I loved that compliment to her, that, she could take whatever they had and just make it into something really good and nutritious and belly filling for their family. So a lot of the cooking I do on our homestead is kind of like that. I'm just using what we have. I'm making our staple recipes, the things that we make, that we eat often, that we like to eat, that really use all of the ingredients that we have on our homestead here, and don't involve me having to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. And of course we buy things. I go to Costco every 3 months or so. We definitely go to the grocery store sometimes. We definitely do all those things. But the best meals are the ones that are just made of simple ingredients, things that you mostly have on your homestead, and so those are the ones that I make a lot of. So this morning for breakfast we're going to be making cottage cheese curd cakes, and so the ingredients we're going to need to make these are some sort of curd. So this is just like yesterday I just what did I do with this yesterday? Yesterday I made a curd mass. So if you don't know how to make cottage cheese, you can check out my video. It's like cottage cheese is more of a method than a recipe. That's what the video title is, I think. I'll link it here. But anyway, so yesterday I just made like a basic curd mass. Last night while I was getting the kids, they were kind of getting ready for bed and I was just cleaning up the kitchen, I cooked that curd mass down into like a cottage cheese sort of consistency and then strained it off in this bowl overnight in this little strainer. It's in a strainer. You can see right there. Yeah. So I did that, and then so this morning it's ready to make these cottage cheese curd cakes. So what this is just like a really nice kind of dry curd, and I'll show you the consistency of it in a second. Salt and pepper, the best little spices around. Some eggs I grabbed from the chicken coop this morning. I'm only getting 3 eggs a day. Today I only got 2. My chickens are on strike. Apparently, actually, I don't think they're on strike. I think they're just laying their eggs everywhere but the chicken coop. That's what I think is going on. Some ghee. So this is my preferred frying fat of choice. I love cooking with ghee, but you can also use bacon fat or any other fat you want to use. We might end up using a little bit of clabber if I feel like I need to loosen up the dough a little bit. And then finally, just breadcrumbs is all that we're going to be using today, unless I forgot something and I'll add it in, but I think that is all we're going to be using today. Alright, so the first ingredient that you need is breadcrumbs. I think this is maybe 2 cups-ish of breadcrumbs. This is not really a recipe, more of just a go by feel sort of thing. So we got about 2 cups of breadcrumbs in there. My favorite way to grind up leftover breadcrumbs is just to use a coffee grinder. So I have like a spare coffee grinder that I got at a thrift store or something, and I use it to grind up like fresh spices and stuff, and I also use it for breadcrumbs. One note as a cheesemaker is if you are using it to grind up spices for cheese, make sure you don't use it for breadcrumbs, or clean it really well after that, because you don't want to be putting bread into your cheese. Alright, so the next thing after I've got my breadcrumbs in there is I'm going to put in my cottage cheese curds here. So it's almost like cream cheese a little bit, actually. Cream cheesy consistency. But you can have like a drier type consistency. I actually thought this would be a drier type consistency, but it's not. And measure with your heart. We're gonna go maybe 3 cups. Would that be 1, 2, 2.5 to 3 cups of that? We'll add more if we need to. Couple eggs, fresh from the coop. Oops. And then we're going to do a little salt. So this is unsalted curds. If your curds are salted, you can add less salt, but I'm going to be adding quite a bit because these curds will need quite a bit. Salt over the left shoulder, we spilled. And a little bit of pepper. Again, I grind my pepper fresh too in that grinder, and it just makes it so nice of spices. Alright, so we're gonna get those eggs mixed up first. And so because these curds are a little bit moister, I might not need to add as much clabber. If any. I don't think I'll need to add any. Basically what you're trying to do is make a meatball consistency. I could actually use a little bit more breadcrumbs almost, maybe. Let's see. So when you roll it in your hand, you don't want it to be sticky. And this is a bit sticky, so I'm going to grind up some more breadcrumbs and add those in. Alright, so I grinded up some more breadcrumbs here. We'll just see how many we need. And it's good to let it kind of sit for a second too, because it any of the moisture soak up into the breadcrumbs too. So you're going to end up getting a little bit drier. Let's see, this is looking pretty good. A little bit more. I'm just going to add all of them because I wouldn't end up using that for anything. That tiny bit. I can add a little bit more cheese. I think it's too dry. Alright. So that is about the consistency I want, I think. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take some, we'll let that sit for a second, and that cheese will kind of, or the breadcrumbs will kind of soak up that cheese a bit. And we're going to take our pan, add in some ghee. I think I have a reel about how to make ghee, but I will make another, or not a reel, a YouTube video about how to make ghee, but I will make another one in the future because that was quite an older one. Too much. Alright. You can see I love using like these, I don't know what they're called, these little spoon things. I'll link the ones that I have below, but they're like little spatulas, but also like little spoons. They're so handy in the homestead kitchen. Alright, so I'm going to melt this and get it all nice and melty and hot. Alright, so now we're going to take our dough here. Still a little bit moist. I shouldn't have added so much cheese. Be fine. So you're going to roll them into like a little ball and then pat them down into a pancake or like a little burger patty. This is a little bit moist, but it'll be okay. So key is to making sure that your pan is really hot when you throw these in. So I'm just going to prepare a bunch. Alright, so get your pan oil nice and hot and melted. And then you're going to add these in. They're going to sizzle. And you don't want to turn them until they're nice and golden brown on the bottom. And don't overcrowd the pan either. A lot of instructions, jeez. Okay, I'm gonna move this back to the stove. How you can eat them. You can just really eat them however you want, but they are just really versatile, super easy breakfast, especially if you've got a lot of curds going on in the house. And you know, a lot of us cheesemakers do have a lot of curds. So thank you guys for watching my video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to find more cheese content, more milk cow content, dairy processing content, all sorts of things like that. And I'll see you guys next Monday.